I was sick when I saw the incident. I was really annoyed with this. Initially, I thought that both Hamilton and Verstappen were out of the race. This is an amazing shot as well. The pure sheer damage to that Red Bull. Look, it's been absolutely destroyed at the back of it. Absolutely destroyed. Now, I really feel like that was Lewis Hamilton's fault. 10-second penalty probably wasn't enough. It was unfair to the championship. Yeah, very good race from Charles Leclerc. 5 stars. My driver of the day, I would say. The move he pulled on Max Verstappen, I would say, was verging on dirty and too aggressive. By talking about McLaren. So... Hello everybody, you're very welcome to the video and thank you for tuning into the channel once again. So, this video is the British Grand Prix reaction. Just a few talking points, I think, from this latest round of the championship. Definitely a minor incident between Hamilton and Verstappen that I would like to talk about as we get through this video. But let me kick us off where I always do with a quick recap as to where we stand at the moment. So looking at the grid, this is how they were lining up. Of course, this grid was determined by yesterday's sprint race or sprint qualifying or whatever the correct terminology is. And I know I did a live watch along for this one yesterday. There was a little bit of confusion about whether or not there would be a reverse grid, but that was kind of down to myself not being fully aware of what was going on here, because I had heard this before. It's just so long since they originally planned that they were going to do the sprint race versus when they actually did it. So in the end, I figured it out. Of course, there was a proposal on the table at one point that they would do a reverse grid based on the positions from the sprint race, but I think it was actually Mercedes who completely vetoed that idea. And in the end, they finished on the, I guess in my opinion, the more boring perspective, where they're saying, yeah, look guys, we're just going to start in the positions we finish in the sprint race. Mercedes, of course, thought that would work really well for them because they're not going to be challenged. They'll be 1-2. They'll be able to start. Little did they realize that Red Bull will be so competitive this year. So maybe, just maybe, they had an alternative way to take care of Red Bull in this race. Possibly. We'll get into that. So Verstappen won the sprint race, and actually I think Verstappen set down a very clear marker. He made it clear to Mercedes, to Lewis Hamilton, that he was in the faster car. There was a little bit of drama for Red Bull. We had a fire in the brake ducts for Verstappen just before the race started. It looked awesome in the replay. It was very scary. You can tell why he needed to get away so fast. And Perez had a little bit of a spin that resulted in him starting from the pit lane for today's race. Trying to think if there was anything else of major consequence. For me, it was Leclerc's pace and the fact he was able to stay so far ahead of Norris was a really big surprise for me. So he looked like he was definitely in the mix, and he was, as it turned out. Okay, so we had Verstappen starting in first, Hamilton second, so that was the key battle, those two going into the first corner. And indeed, it was really exciting in the sprint race yesterday, so expecting more of the same again today. And we weren't disappointed. We were probably a little bit sickened by what did happen in the end with some of us. I guess it's 50-50 looking at Twitter, looking at social media. Leclerc started in a very strong 4th place, 5th for Norris and 6th for Ricciardo. So Ricciardo is in there or thereabouts with his teammate. Still didn't seem to have the same pace as him. Alonso was excellent. He starts in 7th. Vettel is in 8th. Ocon 9th, and Sainz a little bit disappointing for him. He's starting in 10th place. Alright, okay, just as I try to do something else always pops up on the screen, so that doesn't help. This is the race result, where Max Verstappen. I almost said Jos Verstappen. Where's Max Verstappen? He's not in the mix. Max Verstappen did not finish the race because of a major incident that happened during this race. Just a little old incident. I'll get onto that in a minute. So it was Hamilton who finished in first. Leclerc was in second. He's so unlucky for Leclerc. He put up such a strong race today, and just to be overtaken by Hamilton, I think it was lap 50 out of 52. He was very close to this. This was a hard blow for Leclerc, but he did really well. Definitely my driver of the day, I would say, for this. Bottas is in third place in this race. And there you can see the top 10. So Tsunoda actually made his way into the top 10 and beat his teammate. So very good going for him. Ocon was in 9th. Stroll was in an impressive 8th. Alonso was in 7th. Sainz was in 6th. Ricciardo 5th. Norris in 4th. Bottas 3rd. Leclerc in 2nd. And Lewis Hamilton won in front of the home crowds. And he was in first place. He didn't get the fastest lap. Sergio Perez took the fastest lap, but Sergio Perez did not finish in the top 10. So he didn't get a point for that, but he did take away a point from Hamilton. So some kind of damage limitation going on there. Perez didn't have an impressive race. I have to say, well, he didn't have an impressive weekend. He made up a good few positions during today's race. But he had to pit a couple of times, of course. He was sacrificed at the very end then to try and get that fastest lap. As opposed to maybe possibly getting a point for himself, but I don't think he was going to get a point. So it was the right call to make. So in the end, you can see that Schumacher actually finished behind his teammate. Not really sure what happened between those two. We'll need to look into that. Perez did finish in 16th. He had the fastest lap. He doesn't get a point because he's outside the top 10. Raikkonen finished in 15th. Latifi finished ahead of Raikkonen in 14th. Good going for Latifi. Giovinazzi was in 13th. Russell was in 12th, so he wasn't in the top 10 today. Unfortunately for him, he did take a 3-place grid penalty following coming together that he had with Sainz yesterday. And actually that was the reason that Sainz was so far down on the starting order for today as well. Gasly was in 11th. Tsunoda was in 10th. Ocon 9th, Stroll 8th, Alonso 7th, 6th was Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Bottas, Leclerc, Hamilton. We've been through that already previously, and you can see Leclerc only finished 3.8 seconds behind Hamilton. And there's a part of me that wants to say, look at that, the Ferraris are able to compete with the Mercedes now. Well, yeah, I guess they can compete with Bottas, but not with Hamilton. Hamilton did have a 10-second penalty as well. We shouldn't forget that. So Hamilton he was fast today. He was fast. He's always fast, but he was particularly fast again today. No surprises there, though. That's Lewis Hamilton. That's what he's good at. He's good at being fast. So I'm going to skip over the Drivers' Championship standings because I don't have them at the moment. I do have the constructors, and I think the takeaway point here from the constructors is that there are now only 4 points between Mercedes and Red Bull getting a big fat 0 in the championship today. Look at that, 0. Can you believe that? Who would have thought that after yesterday, especially with Max Verstappen winning the sprint race? So that's incredible. That's incredible. That really turns things around. McLaren then remain not quite 20 points, so 15 points ahead of Ferrari. They picked up 22 points, as you can see today, whereas Ferrari, courtesy of Charles Leclerc's really good, strong result in second place, he had them there to pick up 26 points, so they actually picked up more points than McLaren today. So they made very small inroads into that particular lead. All right, let's get into the key points from the race. Hamilton versus Verstappen. What an exciting start to the race. I couldn't believe my eyes. This was, I was on the edge of my seat. Hamilton definitely got a better start than yesterday versus Verstappen. He put him under a lot more pressure. I really liked the fact that Charles Leclerc stuck very close to them as well, and at one point just before the major incident, it looked like Charles Leclerc could have actually become involved in that battle for the top 3 as well. He didn't need to, he just had to pick up the pieces as it transpired. But So, yeah, where to begin on this one? I was sick when I saw the incident. I was really annoyed with this. Initially, I thought that both Hamilton and Verstappen were out of the race because there was so much dust that came up when Verstappen went off the track. When I realised that Hamilton was still in, I was like, okay, that doesn't seem overly fair, but I hadn't had a good chance to look at the incident yet. From looking at the replays of the incident, one thing is for certain, Hamilton was not ahead of Verstappen. I've seen the online arguments that Hamilton pulled off this move 3 times during the race. He knows what he's doing, blah, 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 blah. Okay, he may have pulled off the move 3 times during the race. He got it wrong 33% of the time. The second time he pulled it off, in fact, was against a back marker, and he had the move done way before the corner. I can't remember exactly which back marker it was. Apologies for that. And the third time he pulled it off was against Charles Leclerc, but Charles Leclerc gave him a lot of room and Hamilton stayed a lot closer to the curb on that occasion. Lighter car, he didn't have the fuel load, everything else like that. Definitely a factor, but it was still a reckless move on Charles Leclerc, in my opinion, and not many people are going to get into that, and so this is what it comes back to. It was definitely a reckless move as far as I'm concerned. I'm not happy with this. So, okay, it's reignited the championship in an artificial sense. With the 10-second penalty that Hamilton got, proved that the FIA thought he was in the wrong, but it was only a 10-second penalty, and it was a 10-second penalty for causing a very high-speed accident in which his competitor, Max Verstappen, actually had to be taken to hospital because he experienced, I think it was 52 Gs in the accident. That's absolutely insane. Remember when Romain Grosjean did something crazy and nearly took off Alonso's head at the Belgian Grand Prix a couple of years back, and he got a race ban for it? I find it very hard to believe that Hamilton gets out of this so easily. And 10 seconds, sure, okay, it was a penalty that had some impact. But without Verstappen in the mix and without Perez in the mix, Hamilton really was only racing his teammate, and that was never going to be a fair battle. Hamilton is a lot faster than his teammate. So it was still his race to win if he wanted it, and if he had the appetite for this. Anyway, as it turns out, Hamilton did win the race. Let's have a look at my cutting edge analysis of this. Okay, not quite cutting edge. So here we see it coming into the corner. So Verstappen was very, very clearly was ahead, and it wasn't even half a car length ahead. He was ahead, okay? Verstappen did make a slight movement to the left when he realised that Hamilton was still there, and then he immediately made a move to the right to cut off the corner and to take his racing line. What happened then, as you can see, this is okay, it's a low quality shot, but you can see a lot of detail in here. You can see the bearings from the wheel have smashed. The tyre actually does come off immediately following this as well, but Hamilton made very clear contact with the back tyre of Verstappen's car. Also of note, and you can't see it very well here, but Hamilton is not against the curb here. He was actually drifting to the left as this move went on, possibly because of the high fuel load at the start of the race. He probably had understeer. That's not necessarily his fault, but it was his fault that he decided to try this really optimistic move at the time he did. It was unfortunate because we could have actually had a really intriguing race up to that point. So let's have a look at it from the overhead view. So you can see here, still not a half car length. He probably, this was the closest that Hamilton was to overtaking Verstappen in this move. And this is earlier on in the corner. As we progress, you can see Verstappen really is actually pulling away from Hamilton slightly. Now, it doesn't look like there's a lot of space here. They've made contact, but look at how far away Hamilton is from the curb in relation to the previous shot. So in relation to the previous shot, Hamilton is definitely drifting to an extent. Contact has been made. Yeah, and that's it. Off goes Verstappen. There was no coming back from that. Luckily for Hamilton, he didn't have a lot of damage. I think he cracked the bearing on his tire or something like that. A very, very minor damage to the end plate of his front wing. So he got away with that. He was lucky. It wasn't purely the case that Hamilton took out Verstappen and went on to win the race. There was a danger to himself with that move as well, but he got away with it. This is what resulted. Look at the damage. Look at the damage to the tyre barrier. 52 Gs as well. A huge impact for Verstappen into the tyre barrier. So we had a red flag, of course, and this caused a stoppage for quite a while because they had to they had to repair the opposite of damage. They had to repair the tyre barrier, put all of that back together again. This is an amazing shot as well. The pure sheer damage to that Red Bull. Look, it's been absolutely destroyed at the back of it. Absolutely destroyed. Now, I know the red paint from the tyres makes it look a little bit more dramatic. In the next shot, this is where they're taking away the Red Bull. This, though, there is something here that I do love to see, and that is the red paint on the halo. So you can see there was definitely contact with the tyres, the tyre barrier, and that part of the car. So the halo, it's doing its job. It's preventing, I guess, a 52G collision with the head potentially happening, because at that speed going into a tyre barrier, there needs to be a lot of flexibility there. So that, in a sense, probably helped Max. You would like to think it did help him, and yeah, I think that's it from my side in terms of all of the pictures I had. But yeah, coming back to my reaction, so I'm sorry, and I know people won't disagree with this. I really feel like that was Lewis Hamilton's fault. 10-second penalty probably wasn't enough. It was unfair to the championship. And another thing I really need to talk about here is the way that Hamilton celebrated at the end of the race. I'll come to that, because before I do that, I want to talk about the Merc team orders. How disappointing. So you've already taken your main championship contender rival out of the race. Okay, blame whatever to be attributed to whomever. FIA have clearly said it was Hamilton's fault, so that at least is one perspective to have. But then for the team order to come to Bottas and to tell him, move over, let Hamilton through. So firstly it was don't fight Hamilton, then it was let him through on turn whatever turn number it was. So a lot of help for Hamilton there. Didn't really like that. You could see in the interview afterwards that Bottas was definitely very disappointed. He didn't want to talk about this in any great detail. Obviously he didn't want to go into it. So it didn't sit very well with him. And what is Bottas's future? Who knows? I guess possibly a trip back to Williams is on the cards for Bottas. Maybe he'll get a drive in the Formula E team, because I just have a feeling at this stage that it's George Russell that will be going into the Mercedes seat. Which is going to be very fascinating to see if George is able to get up there with Lewis, and how Mercedes respond to that, because we could have another Lewis Rosberg situation on our hands, and they really don't want that. We do, they don't. I do, they don't. I know you all do as well. And even the hardcore Lewis Hamilton fans will have to agree with me here that you want to see Lewis Hamilton in the car beat the best. His teammate. If his teammate is in the same car as him, obviously, which he would be, you want to see Lewis Hamilton beat his teammate. And it doesn't matter who his teammate is, he shouldn't be scared of that teammate, because Lewis Hamilton is currently the best. That's out there. Verstappen is trying to prove that wrong, obviously, but Hamilton is currently the best. Next up, Hamilton versus Charles Leclerc. Not too much to say on this one. Charles Leclerc put in a great race, really good drive from Charles Leclerc. Very solid. As I said, he was there to pick up the pieces when the collision between Max and Lewis happened. He very nicely snuck through, took over first place, and then we had the red flag. Of course, he restarted then in first place. His restart was amazing. It was a very good start from Charles Leclerc. He had no trouble from Hamilton whatsoever. Leclerc had issues with his engine. I don't know what was going on there, but he was having dips in power. That was the only time that the gap between himself and Hamilton started to close in a little bit. So Hamilton in his Mercedes was definitely struggling with the heat and just didn't need to get into the dirty air of that Ferrari. So he had to keep about anywhere between a 1 to 2 second distance from Charles Leclerc. So it looked like it was relatively stable, that gap. Of course, it didn't turn out that way in the end. Hamilton got onto his fresh tyres and he really went for it. Of course, enabled by his teammate letting him through. And then on lap 50 of 52, he did catch up to Charles Leclerc. He overtook him, and as we said, on the exact same corner where he had the collision with Max Verstappen, actually Charles Leclerc ran wide on that corner, bumped the curb really hard. Actually, he took quite a heavy knock going over that curb, but he wasn't able to fight back. And in the end, he finished 3 seconds, I think, just checking, 3.8 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. It was a great effort from Charles Leclerc, though. Definitely not in a car as good as the Mercedes, but look how much better the Ferrari seems compared to last year, and even compared to the Austrian and Styrian Grand Prix, where the Ferrari went backwards in the race. They were going forwards today, that's for sure, and yesterday in the sprint race as well. Carlos Sainz had quite an interesting race. He finished up in 6th place, so, up a couple of positions from where he started. I think he started in 10th place, if I remember correctly. I'm just going to double check that. Yeah, Sainz started in 10th place. So, very good race from Charles Leclerc. 5 stars. My driver of the day, I would say. Hamilton was good, he was fast, but of course he had that incident. And so let's get on to the over celebration that we saw from Lewis Hamilton. Okay, it was his home race and he was excited, but there's always something a little bit artificial about the way that Hamilton tries to build up the tension in the championship. At least that's what I felt over the last few years. Like, oh man, it was such a tough race, when he wins the race by lapping everybody apart from his teammate, and on some occasions even lapping his teammate. The tires were so bad. Yet we know that's code for when your tires are bad, that you're just going to go faster. So this type of kind of lax sincerity is how it comes across for me. And I got that vibe today, the way he was celebrating. Oh, this is the greatest ever. It was his home race. Okay, we can give him that much. For me, I like Lewis as a driver. He's very exciting to watch. He's a very fast driver. Not the best overtaker in the world, but he's a very fast driver. The move he pulled on Max Verstappen, I would say, was verging on dirty and too aggressive. Once again, just my opinion. And please let me know in the comments what you think of this. I really want to hear the feedback from everybody else on this, because it's such a contentious issue. It's a contentious issue. And my opinion is not the bottom line on this. I would love to hear what everybody else thinks. And whilst I'm at it, do not forget, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell as well if you're so inclined. It's a free world. Go for it. Sorry about that. So coming back to this, so Hamilton did he got his Union Jack flag, he drove around. Okay, it looked fairly iconic, and we're using that picture for the thumbnail as well. It looked great. But all the over celebrations on the radio from the hierarchy in Mercedes, and Hamilton running around and being late for his interview, all the rest. It just didn't sit right with me. Maybe I'm bitter, I don't know. It just didn't sit right with me. And I felt, after the fact that he's put his main rival in hospital with the collision that he caused at the very first lap, to be celebrating like that, it was in bad taste. And I'll leave it there. Finally, I want to finish up on this race reaction by talking about McLaren. So Norris, at one point in this race, it looked like he could be in with a chance of winning the race. Now, he actually had a really tricky pit stop where he lost about 4 seconds because one of the tires got stuck with the wheel nut, the gun, and it happened to a few drivers today, so it looks like the heat played a factor in that. So in the end, yeah, he finished up coming in fourth place, which was still a very solid result considering that they're not in the Mercedes Red Bull battle. But what will really sting for them is the fact that the Ferrari Charles Leclerc finished in second place when both Red Bulls kind of fell out of contention. So that will sting a little bit for McLaren. But they had a very solid race, you know, fourth and fifth for Norris and Ricciardo. And looking at how Ricciardo is progressing, so it was definitely a solid weekend from Ricciardo. He finished one space behind his teammate in the sprint race, and of course in today's race, the main feature race, the full race, whatever you want to call it, feature. I'm sticking to feature race. I'm going to use the Formula 2 terminology for this. Yeah, so I'm going to stick with the Formula 2 terminology for this, but Ricciardo isn't quite there yet. He was a little bit behind his teammate in the sprint race yesterday. He was definitely some way off. So I'm just looking at the timing now. So Norris finished 28.5 seconds from the lead and Ricciardo finished 42.6 seconds away from the lead. So there's about a 14-second difference there between Norris and Ricciardo. So Ricciardo still hasn't been able to get anywhere close to his teammate whatsoever. That doesn't bode well. I suppose he is moving in the right direction, and we definitely want to see him to continue to move in the right direction. But I was a little bit disappointed with that, I have to say. But yeah, that caps off what was a very exciting weekend. I'm still mulling over the fact whether or not I liked the sprint race. I think I did like the sprint race because we still had qualifying on Friday, we had the sprint race on Saturday, and we had the main race today. And we had a lot of Formula 2 happening as well at the same time. So lots going on. Yeah, so I'm going to leave it there for now. Thank you very much for joining us. As I said earlier, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell as well if you want to be notified of future videos and upcoming events. I will be back for the Hungarian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, which I'm really looking forward to. And I'm hoping to do a live watch along for that one as well. And we will speak to you very, very soon.